See, we did a report where we analyzed close to about 100 cities. And then we filtered it down and we came to 30 odd cities in India. And these are all the tier two, tier three towns, which are, which will have accelerated growth. Out of those, there were 17 such cities where we found that there were these interplay of three or four real estate asset classes, which were, giving them the impetus of being the hotspots of growth. Now, primarily what is happening, we've seen a lot of infra push which has happened from the government, whether it is the NLP, whether it's the infrastructure pipeline, whether it is the Gati Shakti, all these schemes are playing up. And, the infrastructure per se is making it convenient for these cities to be easily accessible. The other important thing which has happened on the works front, especially post-COVID, in fact, it started pre-COVID, but post-COVID, it insinuated to a different level. This is the interplay of technology where people could, work from different locations. Now, typically when India started, it was a cost arbitrage economy, primarily on the software side of the business. Now with the mega cities, the six mega cities, the costs being where they are, definitely there is a play of all these cities which are kind of hub and spoke cities, which will come into play. So you would have residential, you will have retail, you will have all these sectors emerge. So one is on the work front, which is giving them opportunities, these tier two, tier three towns. Lastly, we've seen a lot of, internet penetration, which has happened in India. In fact, India happens to be the second largest internet users worldwide, and this is growing further. So digitalization will give a lot of, growth to e-commerce. They will require these warehousing spaces. Data centers will become very much there in most of these towns. We call them colo players, or we call them the edge. These are the smaller data centers. So typically, it's a very clear play which the government has laid out for these tier two, tier three towns, which are getting all this impetus. Now, there's another interesting facet which we discovered was the tourism, and more for spiritual tourism. And in fact, we found out that close to about 50% of domestic tourism, or rather more than that, is spiritual tourism. So, cities like Shirdi, Amritsar, Tirupati, now these drive close to about more than 35 million footfalls yearly. Ayodhya being a case in point where this year itself it's scaled up to about a 35 million, footfalls. So those give a play to a lot of real estate players where there's a lot of interest on hospitality, retail, residential, senior living. So these kinds of activities are playing up for, the tier two, tier three towns.
This is, Badal, this is what is playing out, spiritual tourism, digitalization. This is Zinni joining in the conversation as well. So, obviously, what is it that in terms of what price band are you seeing the growth coming in? Whether you look at in terms of, especially on the residential real estate side, if there is a lot of development there, is it higher price band? What sort of development is happening there?
So different cities are singing different tunes. But if I have to give you a sense, Ayodhya, for example, gave close to about 170% increase in their land prices in over 2 years. So, when we talk about price bands, these are more affordable in nature because the mega cities which we talk about have gone to a different zone of, the price points. So the cities which we see primarily not on the tourism side, but on the commercial side, the manufacturing side, we are looking at mid-tier to premium kind of a development on the residential space. But we are seeing a lot of these organized retail coming up in these cities.
So mid to premium plus organized retail is there, but Any emerging hotspots that one should watch out for in terms of development? Where is it all happening? Ayodhya, right, you mentioned right now, we're seeing Ayodhya, which is a part of it. But which other cities where, in tier 2, tier 3, you're seeing a lot of development?
So, Vinny, we've listed close to about 17 such locations, and we call it the equitable growth because four of them being in the north, four of them being in south, and some of them being in east and west. So it's all spread across. It depends on how it plays out. But if we have to, the way we are moving forward, it appears that most of these cities will give opportunities for growth in various real estate assets. So difficult to pinpoint one or two, but these 17 will definitely see some good traction on the real estate side.
The last word that I want in terms of while we're talking about tier 2, tier 3, but what about urban growth story? What is the roadmap ahead over there? Do you think now that is at a standstill?
Oh, great question. We talked about tier 2, Ajay mentioned on the tier 2, tier 3. See, we are talking about the growth cities, emerging cities. The growth stories in the largest cities is intact and growing still. So we'll have our pain points of, infrastructure and things like that. But if you look at cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, NCR, they are growing pretty well, and they'll keep on growing. It's just that these tier 2, tier 3 towns come up as emerging cities. So the growth story stays intact in these towns. It's just that the other ones are joining the bandwagon. If we have to be the third largest economy, we need all these cities to be where they ought to be in the next 5 years.
On that point, I just want to follow up is that, obviously, if urban is also growing and we're seeing tier 2, tier 3, seeing that good development coming in, for the sector, what is the growth that one could be expecting by maybe the next 4 or 5 years? Where do we see the real estate sector then?
So we are anticipating it to be close to about USD 1 trillion by 2030. So currently we are at about 0.2. And so it's a huge growth story lying ahead, both on the real estate and infra space.
Thank you so much, Badal, for joining in with us this afternoon on ET Now, giving us an highlight in terms of what's happening from the development front for tier 2, tier 3 cities. And it's not only just the big cities which are growing, but tier 2, tier 3 clearly seeing a big development, whether in retail, either on residential, commercial front, all of it seeing a development. Thank you so much, Badal, for joining in with us. But let's move.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.